Kentucky couldn't land Scott Drew, but they went out and they got literally the next best guy on the Baylor bench. This is Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor. I am your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, and thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. Big news on the Baylor basketball front. It has to do with a Baylor coach and Kentucky. Stop me if you've heard that one before. Yes, for the second time this year, Scott Drew loses his arguably top assistant, his co-associate head coach. We'll talk about that, as well as the massive matchup the Bears have come late November, early December against the defending champs. And of course, how are they going to replace the Jalen Bridges size hole in their team? All of that and a little bit more we'll discuss today. But starting with the big news of Wednesday, and that is, yes, for the second time in this offseason, Scott Drew will have to replace his top assistant. And it's that old kind of nemesis again, the guys who keep coming for our coaches, and that is the University of Kentucky. Scott Drew said no to him earlier this month, and so they went and they got his top assistant. Of course, John Jacobs, co-associate head coach, left for the head coach job at FAU earlier in the offseason, and now the other co-associate head coach, Alvin Brooks III, is off to join Mark Pope's staff at Kentucky. Tough loss for Baylor. It really is. And a big gain for the Kentucky Wildcats. I know they're loving the way Mark Pope is building the staff out, and this is the jewel in the crown of the staff. I mean, you're not going to find a more well-respected assistant coach in America. I mean, really, Alvin Brooks and John Jacobs were two of the elite that we're seeing as assistant coaches in college basketball. And so definitely a big time move from Mark Pope. Alvin Brooks III has been here through the highest of highs. And he came in a year before Jacobs in 2016. And I say that to mention that, you know, I talked about when Jacobs left, how he came at the right time and he changed the identity and helped tremendously on the recruiting trail to raise Baylor standards. And Alvin Brooks III was right there with him. Like, he absolutely deserves a mention in that. You know, he was also there to help change the offense. He was also there to bring in top end recruits. In fact, he was the primary guy recruiting VJ Edgecombe, who might be the biggest recruited Baylor's history, finished number 3 on the ESPN Top 100 this week. And yeah, that it's worth mentioning that VJ picked Baylor over both Duke and Kentucky. Yeah. Now, this initial report of Alvin Brooks taking the job came from Matt Norlander, who is obviously one of the top guys on this. He said, he tweeted out Tuesday morning, top Baylor assistant Alvin Brooks III is leaving the Bears to join Mark Pope's staff. Sources tell CBS Sports. Spent the last 8 years under Scott Drew and will be the associate head coach as well at Kentucky. Highly respected in the profession. A major coup for Pope. And he goes on to say in this thread, for Baylor, Brooks was instrumental in recruiting top 5 prospect VJ Edgecombe, but I'm told Brooks leaving for UK isn't expected to change things. He, as an Edgecombe, is still headed to BU this fall. And then the nice little nugget at the end, Scott Drew is also close to hiring Link Academy coach Bill Armstrong to his staff, sources said. We'll get to that part in a minute. But hearing about VJ not jumping ship to Kentucky is a reason to breathe a sigh of relief. And that's fortunately something that Baylor has not had to go through with their assistant coaches leaving, and whether they become assistants, like in this case, or head coaches. They have not brought players out the door with them. And I think we're really lucky because a lot of other schools not like that. In fact, Kentucky fans, I mean, they're seeing guys now jump and leave for Arkansas. Thankfully, we have not had that problem at Baylor, even though, John Jacobs goes to FAU and they've barely got a roster, and still he hasn't plucked a bunch of Baylor players. So I'm hoping that continues to be the case. Again, VJ is probably the biggest and best recruit he's ever got, that Baylor's ever gotten. And I have heard from a source, which you will hear on this show, so it's not revealing anything bad, that VJ was ready to commit to Baylor the day of his visit and was so in on it for months before actually making the commitment, but was ready to do it when he made that visit, not the Duke visit, not the Kentucky visit, but the Baylor visit. So that does make me feel a little bit better about things. But looking at who AB3, Alvin Brooks III, has been on the recruiting trail with. Now, he and Jacobs were obviously the primary recruiters. Scott Drew, absolutely a closer, don't get me wrong. But those are the guys that were out there on the trail first. And Alvin Brooks III is tied to some big guys. Obviously, VJ Edgecombe, he's tied to Jacoby Walter, who's going to be a lottery pick this year. He's tied big to Keontae George, who, is going to finish top 5 in Rookie of the Year voting in the NBA, had a terrific year at Baylor. So he has absolutely been attached to some big names in this kind of revolution that Baylor has had over the last 5 or 6 years of bringing in some of the top high school basketball talent in not just America, in the world. Obviously, Jacobs was big on the international side of things, and domestically, Alvin Brooks III has been tied to some major names. So he was there to see through that kind of jump to national prominence. And I do want to say out there, Alvin Brooks he was a fan of mine. He did comment on my jump shot ability last week on Twitter. That is not tampering. I am not jumping to Kentucky. That was just a good man pointing out the obvious, that I have a beautiful jump shot. So I want to thank him for that. But I don't want to get Baylor fans up in a tizzy. I'm not jumping ship to Kentucky. But we wish all the best to Alvin Brooks III, of course. I mean, what he's done at Baylor has been incredible. He's part of one of the best benches coaching wise in all of college basketball. But this is a big kind of back to the drawing board for Scott Drew. I mean, it's not easy replacing 4 out of 5 starters, and he's doing a good job plugging away at that so far. It's really not easy to replace 2 top assistant coaches. And getting someone like Bill Armstrong from Link Academy, who we obviously know he has a great relationship with. That's where Kobe Walter finished out, right, at Link Academy. And I think that's a big time hire. I was actually thinking that before I saw the Norlander tweet, not necessarily Bill Armstrong, but someone from the high school ranks that might make the jump up. I think it might be a little tough to get someone like Kevin Boyle from Montverde, who has coached some of the very best guys in the country, and obviously was Rob Wright's coach this year. I think that might be a little tough, but bringing someone in like Bill Armstrong is a nice hire for me, because that keeps you on the recruiting trail for sure. And you've also got some other guys on the staff. This is why it's deep. Tweety Carter has been a big part of the staff the last couple of years. A lot of behind the scenes stuff, not even on the bench. Ty Beard has been a trusted guy on the staff for years, and so is Jared Nunes. So I would expect those guys to get promotions, and certainly someone from the outside. But this is a bit of a task for Scott Drew, and losing Alvin Brooks III in a vacuum is not easy. Kentucky is getting a heck of an assistant coach there to go be Mark Pope's right-hand man, a guy who has done it at the highest level, has championship experience, Kentucky fans. So that is a big-time coup for Mark Pope and the folks out in Lexington. Okay, look, y'all, we have all been there, okay? It's halftime. You look up, the situation's not looking great, right? Okay, you're down a lot. You don't think your team has it in them to make the comeback. Like, I get it. We've all been there probably too many times, okay? But that's when you dig deep. That's when you lift your head up and you say to yourself, it's time to get back in this game and pull off some bank heists and steal my friend's money. That's right. I'm talking about the smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go. It lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire possible. It's the Monopoly you love, built on your phone anytime, with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. There's so much you can do. The countless Monopoly boards. You can bankrupt your friends by smashing their landmarks, like with a whole wrecking ball. And you could charge other players rents for your properties. And you could work with your friends, if that's your kind of thing, to crack open community chests, get those extra rewards. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go. Now, that is available for free. Again, Monopoly Go, available for free on the App Store and on Google Play. Today's episode of Locked On Baylor is also brought to you by Gametime, okay? We know y'all are getting back out to the ballpark. Texas Rangers, if that's your thing. But you go out there and you just want the price you're going to pay for your ticket, right? I know that's me. Just be honest with me. And the only place that's honest with you is Gametime. They have the all-in pricing. You go on the website, you see the view from your seat, and you see the price you're going to pay. None of the hidden fees that you're getting with all these other websites. You know, I'm sick of trying to buy a ticket and it doubles my price as soon as I'm about to enter my credit card information. Not the case at Gametime. And they got zone deals and flash deals going on, throughout the week, all the way up until the start of your event, whether it is a game, a concert, a comedy show, theater, anything like that. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Now, terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Tough loss on the Alvin Brooks III front. Doesn't mean they can't come back from that, trust me. But that's a tough loss. I mean, there are not a lot of coaching situations ever where you lose your two top assistants in the same offseason. Like you would be hard pressed to find that, man. But Baylor's going to keep chugging on, and they're going to have their best recruiting class ever, and they're going to play one of the toughest schedules in the country, as they always do. They entered the NCAA tournament last year with the number one strength of schedule in America. And it's become kind of a thing over the last couple of years of, hey, anytime, anywhere. Even before Baylor won the national championship, Scott Drew would schedule tough. And that's been raised a notch the last 3 or 4 years. Anytime, anywhere. Last year, it was Auburn to open the season. Game 1. That's crazy, man. That's nuts. Let's play Michigan State, Detroit. Let's play Duke at Madison Square Garden. True road games against these top teams. And this year is no different. This is no neutral site, but it's a road game. This is a road game. It was announced on Tuesday. John Rothstein had the news out there that the Big East, Big 12 matchup have been set, and Baylor is like, "Oh, y'all don't want to do this? Because we'll do this. We'll do it. No, we'll do it. We'll do it. We will go up to Storrs, Connecticut, and face the 2-time defending national champion UConn Huskies." Wow. Texas Tech sitting back there like, no, we'll take DePaul. If no one else wants it, we'll take DePaul. Okay, fine. Baylor's like, UConn, please. We want the best basketball program in America right now. Woo! 3 of the last 4 national championships between those two teams. And boy, yeah, that is going to be something. That is going to be one of the toughest tickets in college basketball all year. My dad has already told me he's going. He's driving down from Massachusetts. It's only a couple hours. I'm like, good luck. Good luck. I wish I could go there with you. I would love to. If I could have the time, I would love to go out there and do that, time and the money. But this is right now, I mean, this is the marquee matchup on the college basketball schedule. It doesn't get any bigger than any big team facing UConn is as big as it gets. And you got a team that has been one of the best programs at college basketball the last 5 years that also has a national championship ring. Yeah, that's massive. And I don't know if they'll play it in Hartford, which is kind of next door to Storrs, and the XL Center is a bigger venue than Gamble Pavilion. I imagine they might try to have it up at the XL Center, but either way, I mean, you're jumping into the home court of a blue blood team, which Baylor hasn't done in the non-conference since they went to Kentucky. It always comes back to Kentucky. Since they went to Lexington in 2013 or whatever that was, and beat Kentucky, by the way, ended the 55-game winning streak at Rupp Arena. I think that was the last time that they did something like that, which is, yeah. I mean, it just doesn't happen a lot. You know, you go to Fog Allen every year because you have to. But I don't know if they had their druthers that they would do that. And you've had some great matchups at neutral sites, whether it be neutral sites on the road like Duke and Michigan State, which I already mentioned, or you've played Auburn and Gonzaga at the Pentagon in South Dakota the last 2 years. So like Scott Drew ain't afraid to schedule anybody, but this is next level. Not afraid, to go up to Storrs and play Dan Hurley's UConn. That is a massive measuring stick. And what I think is fascinating, I thought about this last night, is, boy, you're going to have at least 2 freshmen as a big part of the rotation, right? With Rob Wright and, of course, VJ Edgecombe, I expect will probably be a starter. And you're going to throw them up there end of November, early December into this cauldron and against one of the best teams in America. And I'm thinking, but you know what? It's going to probably be the first big true road game, but it's going to be like the third game that they play against top 20, top 10 opponents. Like, that's how tough they schedule. Again, Auburn last year was game 1, and they'll always play in a premier pre-Thanksgiving tournament. And so you'll get 1, maybe 2 there. 2 years ago, they had 2 top 15 or 20 teams facing UVA and UCLA. And so when you get to that Big East, Big 12, it's I'm not saying it's easy or anything. It's not, but you have a few notches on your belt. You've already played a couple of good teams. Now, that helped against Seton Hall this past year, which Baylor kind of ran away with that game. I think they ended up making it a little close at the end, but controlled that game from start to finish. And 2 years ago, it didn't help you because you lost to Marquette by 30 points. But, boy, all I'm saying is this needs to be a home and home. If we're going up to Storrs, we need them down at the Foster in 2025. We need that, okay? That is terrific for college basketball. And I know UConn's trying to schedule Texas as well, which is great for college basketball. Let's do that. I think more teams should be going for broke in the non-conference the way Baylor kind of has the last couple of years. To have the matchups like Kansas went up to Bloomington to face Indiana last year. That was great. This is awesome college basketball. And in this particular matchup, a real blue blood against a new blood, an aspiring blue blood. We're not there yet. But, boy, having these kind of marquee matchups, that is really going to be fun. So mark your calendars. The date, I don't know, but it's probably going to be a Monday night in late November, early December. And we're going to have 2 of the top 5 basketball programs of the last 5 years squaring off against each other. The 2-time defending national champs who just never lose, period, never lose at home, never lose against good teams. All of those things kind of going against Baylor in this one. But, boy, that is going to be fun. When I saw that news, I was just, wow, okay, let's do this thing. You can't say Scott Drew is afraid to schedule anybody. You just can't. All right, y'all, we're in basically the best sports time of the year. We are thick in the NBA and NHL playoffs. We are also way knee deep at this point into baseball season. It is the best time to get out there and make these games interesting because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed through FanDuel, which is your place to bet on every game. Again, that's new customers getting $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and so easy to use that I can make money off it. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and make your first bet an automatic win. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And so Baylor has to adjust to life without Alvin Brooks III now. That's a lot. That's a lot to make up for. And they now have a player going into the portal as well. Miro Little made the announcement on Wednesday that he will be entering the transfer portal after just one season at Baylor. And I don't want to, this one isn't too shocking, unfortunately. But it's kind of a sad one in that he came in as a 4-star recruit last year out of Finland, and I really saw him developing as a starter for the Bears, not next year, hopefully the year after. And I just expected his role to get bigger and bigger. But of course, looking at this year for the 24-25 season, that is now a logjam at the guard position, right? I mean, you bring in a Jeremy Roach, you bring in VJ Edgecombe, you bring in Rob Wright, and hopefully have a healthy Langston Love. And we talk about how, all these moves could put a guy like Jaden Nunn, who started every game last year, on the bench. That could happen. That's a wild thing that rarely happens in college basketball. And for that, there's a trickle-down effect. So now there's a guy in Miro Little who was getting 7 minutes a game last year, who now might not be getting anything with that log jam at the guard position. It stinks, but I wouldn't say it's the most shocking thing I've seen. Again, 7 minutes a game. Obviously, his role definitely, got bigger as Langston Love was injured through most of the conference season. He got injured back in early February. So after that, the numbers went up for Miro in terms of usage rate. He did shoot 43% from the floor. Obviously didn't take a lot of shots, but that's something that, could be something, a sign for years to come. But just under 2 points a game, a rebound a game, less than 1 assist a game, just didn't get a lot of time out there on the floor. And I thought these were going to be invaluable minutes for him to get out there in conference games and play a role for this team. And he did, but unfortunately that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get on the court the next year. And with more guards coming in for Baylor, this is not too surprising a decision, I don't think. He will always have a Baylor record, or shot of record anyway. He scored the last points at the Farrell Center. So always have that. And was a guy that I could just see him developing into a Baylor style of player, crafty type of point guard. You saw that on his tape out of high school, and a good wingspan. I thought could have been a nice backcourt perimeter defender as well in the years to come. But he now enters the portal. First thing that comes to mind for me, FAU. I was actually on a podcast with the FAU guys right after Jacobs had taken the job. And they said, anybody in the portal that we should be looking for, any Baylor guys? And I was like, well, that doesn't really happen. I said it kind of earlier in the show. That doesn't really happen. Guys don't follow the coaches who are leaving Baylor. But I guess if anybody, maybe look at Miro Little. I don't know what his role is going forward. And he's a Jacobs guy. And now here he is. He's in the portal. So don't be surprised if he ends up in Boca Raton playing for FAU. That wouldn't be slimy or skeevy or anything like that. But he has a great relationship with Coach Jacobs. Coach Jacobs was the one who recruited him, even when he was in Finland, if I'm not mistaken. So obviously they've got a great relationship. He was a guy who came in to play in that Jacobs style of offense. And now Coach Jacobs can say, hey, why don't you come here and run that offense? And you'll be my guy. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that. But other than that, I don't know. He's one of those kids who he came in as a senior in high school to the U.S., played in Kansas, and being a 4-star guy, there was certainly attention on him, but I wonder if he had played all of his high school ball in the U.S., I think he would have got a lot more eyes on him rather than starting it in Finland. That's obviously not his fault, but I just wonder if that makes for a little bit less of a pool of coaches who are after him. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if he ends up at FAU and playing for Coach Jacobs. So anyway, that he was one that had also endeared himself to the fans a little bit. I think we had all loved him as a prospect, but also the heart that he played with when he was out there. He was never out efforted when he was out there on the court. So it's tough to see him go, but Baylor is really in a good spot at the guard position. And I think Miro saw that as a logjam, and certainly can't fault him for that, but we'll certainly monitor whomever is going into the transfer portal this week. And hopefully we'll have some news on who Baylor is getting out of it. But let me know what you think about Miro entering the portal, about Alvin Brooks III taking the same job at Kentucky. And if Kentucky needs him more than he needs them. There we go. Got that out. I think that's probably the case. Not that's a bad thing. And this Baylor UConn game, that's going to be fun. Let me know what you think about that down in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe. Ring that notification bell to see when we are dropping all of our videos every day on YouTube, as well as wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. We'll be back tomorrow talking a little bit more basketball, I think, on Locked On Baylor.